Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the BC Wine Grape Council R&D Committee third Thursday for July. I don't know how we got to July, but it's awesome. Um, Today we have Dr. Jumi Gogoi. Dr. Gogoi holds a PhD in Resources, Environment, and Sustainability from the University of British Columbia. Her academic and research background includes crop yield prediction, the use of satellite data in agriculture and viticulture, and the analysis of multi-source geospatial data sets using machine and deep learning and cloud computing platforms such as Google Earth Engine. Now, I've seen this presentation. It's awesome, but pay attention. So it's going to be a quiz at the end. Welcome, Jumi.
Thank you, Kathy. Shall I start sharing my screen?
Yes,
Or
please.
you
Yeah,
can,
yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I hope you can see my
Yep.
screen.
Looks good. It's in. Good. Perfect. All good.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see everyone in the same Zoom room. My name is Jumi, and I'm a postdoctoral fellow at UBC and BC Wine Grape Council. And for today's presentation, I'll be focusing on two things. First, that we've been building for the BC growers. First is the coal hardiness forecasting model. And the second is a free data tool called the Canadian Vineyard Atlas. And both these tools are specifically being built for the BC growers. And before I start with the presentation, I just want to start with a brief background to the work. So why do BC growers need their own forecasting and data tools? So we know that BC has a very uniquely challenging terrain. There are some extreme temperature swings, cold snaps arrive fast, and a few kilometers in elevation or distance from the lake can make a real difference. And this has been sort of felt in terms of like the freeze damage to buds and woods as quantified by the recent loss numbers of millions of dollars for the 2022 and 2024 vintage. And these kind of climate risk is compounded by the fact that the response window is very narrow for management. And we also know that the existing data and tool capabilities are sort of limited for BC viticulture right now. That is, coal hardness sampling is very site specific and it doesn't really represent all vineyards well. And this is where this project sort of comes in to develop BC specific data exploration and risk forecasting tools. Basically, we're trying to integrate data spanning multiple cultivar sites and seasons into this work. And then we're also combining modeling with broader DAS station network with more data so as to extend coverage to some underserved areas in the past. So let me begin with coal hardness forecasting, which is BC specific, variety specific, and a daily forecasting model. So to start with the modeling work, we looked at coal hardiness data for more than multiple varieties, multiple sites, and multiple seasons. And as you look at the distribution of the variety, as we go from like the distribution of the coal hardiness of the varieties, as we go from the less hardy to more hardiness of the varieties, and again, like going down to the bottom hardiest, we see where each variety's mean sort of sits relative to the BC average of minus 21 degrees. And we see that most of the variety, like coal hardiness values, cluster around minus 21 degrees. So overall, we see that there is a 5-degree spread that separates the most vulnerable variety from the most resilient variety. And this is a very important signal for the model to learn on because the model is trying to sort of predict coal hardiness variety by variety. So this is the foundation of our modeling work, this entire coal hardiness data set. And in terms of like the developing the model, there are 3 data layers that is currently going into the model. The first is the field measured vineyard coal hardiness measurements that is coming in from the AFC data sets. So this is across all the 60 vineyard sites, the multiple seasons and the multiple cultivars of the data set is sort of that is driving one of the biggest inputs for the model. And then we are combining this particular field measurements with two kind of weather records. First is the weather station data that is coming from the DAS network. And then we are also sort of bringing in the DAMED gridded climate data so as to gap fill the data when station records are missing in some cases. So all of these inputs are currently feeding into a deep learning model, which sort of gives us the final output for the growers, which is basically a daily forecast by variety. And before I move on to the results, we just want to quickly show that the reason for including DAMED data in the work, and we tested basically how the DAMED data was reliable for BC vineyards. So we basically looked at comparing the station data to Damon data. And as you see, as the sort of years build up, we see like a good correlation between the station data and the Damon data through the years, and it holds up consistently, like the relationship is consistent across the years. And overall, we see that the station data and Damon data has a good correlation of 0.9. Basically, that it gives us confidence that Damon is able to capture all of the local conditions as captured by the weather station data. So now using this model, we are able to sort of capture coal hardiness daily. So as you see for two varieties, we see that the model is able to capture that seasonal trajectory in two testing seasons. So it's just a sample of what the model output looks like. So the model is sort of able to capture that acclimation in early winter and then the mid-season plateau and then deacclimation in the spring. So the model is sort of able to capture that seasonal trajectory. And it's not just about capturing that seasonal trajectory, it's also looking at if the model is able to sort of capture and track the light, significant, and the severe damage thresholds across the season. So we're looking at the 10, 50, 90 sort of thresholds of damage. And you can see that in the 2020, 23-24 year, there was a deep cold spike in between January and February, and the model below is sort of able to capture it in that particular time. So that difference or the spread between the lines is basically the range of damage risk that can be observed at any point during the winter. So we see that the model is able to sort of consistently track that seasonal trajectory, and then it's able to do that consistently across these two example years and for these two varieties. So moving on, so in terms of where this work is headed, so what we are doing right now is sort of developing a free interactive data dashboard, which would allow, this is still in development. So what you're seeing right now is sort of like a very preliminary preview. So we're trying to sort of bring in all of the data into a free data dashboard that would allow the growers to sort of select a variety, location, a specific season, and then look at, and in an interactive sort of way, look at how the model sort of performs and what the values are for a specific variety in a specific season. And a key feature is the comparison feature that we're building in that would allow the growers to sort of compare the performance or the coal hardiness of a particular variety season to season. And the end goal is basically to sort of integrate all of these forecasts into the BC Desk platform. So I can quickly sort of show you what the platform looks like. So let me just share my screen. So like an example, so this is still in development, just an example. So for example, in 2024-25, so one can select what varieties they want to look at and then the location, and then selecting what outputs to sort of look at. So all the three outputs together, looking at like what the values were on each day as we move into the season, and then so on. So it has an interactive feature, so you can also like track the maximum and minimum temperature at the same time. And then this would allow you to sort of track, sort of compare and track sort of the model performance across the season as well. So this would be like a free interactive data dashboard where, like depending on what kind of like output you want to look at, you can sort of, like filter in and sort of look at different outputs through the season and for different varieties and for different sites. So this is still in development. We're hoping to sort of finalize this as we finalize the models, and this would remain a free interactive data dashboard. And we'll be sort of sharing the results as we finalize the dashboard. So let me go back to the presentation. So in terms of sure. Sure. So in terms of like what decisions this kind of a tool could support. So some example use case scenarios looking at 3 time horizons. So in the immediate horizon, it could like help with decision making, such as like looking at a variety's cold tolerance in real time, and that could enable some management decision making before damage happens, such as like running wind machines and applying frost protection and so on. And because the model is developed for each variety, it could enable some variety specific responses as well. And when we try to move from a reactive model to a proactive data-driven decision-making system, we can look at some seasonal decision-making use case scenarios, such as, one could look at where the vines currently sit in the seasonal trajectory of their arc. It could sort of support identification of the optimal pruning window for a specific variety. And because we are tracking the coal hardiness of a specific variety day by day, it sort of removes that uncertainty of making decisions by a general rule of thumb. And then in the long term, one could look at sort of decision making of like which sites and varieties struggled, like by comparing those multi-season history, and that could sort of inform replanting decisions using some data-driven insights. So basically, this kind of like a tool could support like a data-driven site and cultivar selection and decision making going forward. So that was the coal hardness piece of the presentation. So now the next tool, which is the Canadian Vineyard Atlas. So this is a free tool, no login, no account, no software required. It's just a browser-based tool that we've developed as part of the broader data exploration for this project. So just quickly introducing before I give you a live walkthrough. So the Canadian Vineyard Atlas is a free interactive app built on a cloud computing platform called Google Earth Engine. And we've developed this platform completely using open source data. No proprietary data has been used to develop any of the data sets or outputs that you will see in the platform. And it works in any browser. It doesn't require any login or a software. You can just like copy paste the link and operate it in any browser. And in terms of what this platform could do, so this platform could be used to sort of view vineyard locations across BC and Canada at a 30-meter spatial resolution, which is powered by the annual AFC's annual crop inventory. It will allow you to sort of pull up weather and satellite data for any location. And then this data could also be downloaded as a CSV or an image, depending on the use. So I'll give you a live walkthrough, but if you want to follow along with me, you can try it yourself. So I'll just share the link on the app as well. Sorry. This is, so just share the link on the chat if you want to follow along with me, but let me just share my screen. Oh, not this one, sorry. Here we can see my screen. So the Canadian Vineyard Atlas. So again, like just giving a quick walkthrough. So this is a free app. So as you see, so the app is running live on a browser. No login, no software required, no account creation. You can just like directly open this app on a browser. So this particular app is powered by three data sets. The AFC annual crop inventory, which is basically mapping all the vineyard locations in BC and Canada. So it's basically all this red layer. Uh, the annual crop inventory, which sort of identifies vineyard locations across Canada. And this data set is an annual data product and has an accuracy of 85%. So sometimes when you see that, the mask sort of overlaps with a road or with a non-vineyard area, it's that 15% error that sort of trickles down from the map. But in case like it's distracting, you can turn this layer off. There is a toggle layer of option up in the top right corner of the app. So this could sort of turn the layer off if it's better without a layer view. And then the second data set is the day-met climate. As we saw that day-met climate has a very good correlation with the local weather station data. So this could act as a proxy when weather stations are not available consistently throughout the region. And the third product is the Sentinel-2 satellite data. It's European Space Agency's optical sensor that gives us a complete imaging of a location every 2 to 3 days at a 10-meter spatial resolution. So it's a very high resolution free data product that enables to sort of track canopy development in a season or in a dormant season. So it's a very simple app. As you can see, like you can filter. It's just a selection of couple of menu like options in the menu. So selecting a crop year, maybe I'm looking at 23. And then one could look at like either weather or sentinel data. So maybe firstly looking at weather and then looking at temperature, a host of weather variables to explore. Looking at minimum temperature. And then also we've added in a feature where one could look at a year range, like looking at data for multiple years or looking at data for a single year and then looking at data for a few specific months. So maybe I'll like start with the year range, select a year. Maybe I want to look at like 2020, like 3 years of data, and then I'm going to zoom in. Maybe I'll look at Summerhill. Just click on it. And then it'll just generate a chart for me, of the minimal temperature in the last 3 years, and it's got a interactive feature to it, so you can sort of track it like as you move along the line, and you can also expand it here, open it in an enlarged view, and this data can be again like downloaded as a CSV file or as a image, uh, and then similarly, like if I want to look at uh, a single year and month. So maybe I want to look at 2024 and maybe like fall and winter. and then again at the same place. So it sort of just gives me that monthly view now. So just looking at each data point. So it's daily data. So looking at each data point as we go into from fall to winter at that particular lat long location. And again, like this would be downloadable as a CSV or a image file. Similarly for Sentinel, so maybe I want to look at vegetation data in the last maybe 3 years, and then again, maybe year. And also like I've added in a few sort of like a note where you can sort of interpret the value. So NDVI low is always indicating like a sparse or a stressed canopy, whereas high values sort of indicate dense growth. So that sort of helps to sort of interpret those numbers again. And then there'll be some missing values as you see here. That is because Sentinel has a 2 to 3 day revisit cycle. So an image becomes available every 2 to 3 days. So that's why sometimes there are data gaps in between. And also sometimes we do a cloud masking to sort of eliminate the signal of the cloud that sort of, interferes with the canopy. So that also sort of results in some missing values. And then again, this can be expanded and sort of explored as data becomes available. But here, what becomes useful is like tracking the peaks when they happen, like in terms of like canopy growth. So May again, like sometime around April, May again, and this could be again like in early April. So it sort of allows to sort of like track those peaks and troughs in the season, but using a satellite view to the canopy. And again, like similarly for moisture, we have a index called the NDWI. So, and then this particular product is currently just useful to explore and download weather and satellite data, but we are planning to sort of bring in some soil information as well. So adding a soil layer to this product where at every lat long or every location, you'd be able to sort of get some soil information as well. And because this app is for Canada as well, so if we wanted to look at sort of conditions, vineyard conditions in the East Coast, so these locations, I'm not sure, they might be wrong, but in case you wanted to look at a particular location, again, like same thing, like one could go in and then sort of click at a location and sort of generate a chart depending on weather or Sentinel data that's required for that location. Uh, so yeah, so you see the temperature. So again, so this is overall in Canada. So this could be used not just in BC, but for the entire Canadian region where vineyards are sort of present at the moment. Let me come back to my presentation. Oh, so quickly in terms of like some use case scenarios, what can one do with the Canadian Vineyard Atlas? Again, like in the immediate horizon, one could like pull up daily temperatures for any past season, see exactly what conditions vines experience during a cold event or a heat stress event as well. And this could be down, and the data could act as records for insurance documentation or just record keeping in general. And in the planning zone, it could like help you look at weather data at a specific location, compare temperature and precipitation values across potential sites before making any sort of planting decisions, and then also like site selection decisions backed by actual climate data and not regional averages, like going forward. And it could also help monitor like vines from space. So for example, switching to a satellite view enables to view canopy health at a 10-meter resolution. Then one could also track this development through the growing season with the Sentinel sensor, as it has like every 2 to 3 days sort of tracking built into it. And then this data sets could be used for like a season to season comparison to like look at stressed blocks in the summer or in the winter. So these are some like use case scenarios, like when we look at going from like a reactive model to a proactive data-driven system using the Canadian Vineyard Atlas. So what's next in terms of what's coming is that we are trying to sort of integrate these cold hardness forecast and the model into the BC DAS system. And then we'll be looking at powdery mildew forecasting and grapevine phenology tracking. And the Atlas is live. You can try the Atlas using this link. And then also please let us know your feedback in terms of the models and the Atlas. We could sort of add in your feedback towards improving these features. And the contact information for Galen, Nathaniel, and myself are up here. So in case you wanted to reach out to us. And lastly, thank you, like just thanking my advisors, Galen, Nathaniel, Simone, for all your advice on getting these things running. AFC, BC Wine Grape Council, and BC Growers Association for providing us the coal hardness data, and Peak Hydromet and Grower Supply Network for giving us access to the weather station data. And then MITAX, BC Wine Grape Council, and CCLSP for providing the funding for this work. Sorry, stop sharing there. And happy to take questions.
Thank you, Jumi.
Thank
You are a very fast talker. So we have a lot of time for a very active discussion here. I did get a little distracted because I opened the Atlas and I now know exactly what the temperature was in my vineyards in January 2024. It also explains why I still have live vines. So that is super cool. Do we have, I'm sure we have some questions. Hopefully everybody else looked up their vineyards too. Lindsay, do you have a question?
Well, I was just putting on the video so you guys weren't talking to a bunch of names across the board, but I mean, I do have questions. Yeah, it's wanting to get in and play with it. Good job getting this up and going. I know Kate and I have been dreaming of something like this for years, of actually seeing this translated into an actual usable live interface. So this is just awesome to see this starting, and how far it's come so fast. But yeah, I guess leaning in on the stuff around the vegetation of what it's showing. I was trying to understand that one a little bit, following through what exactly is it measuring? Like, what does it mean by vegetation? Like, is it looking at the amount of green? Is it like doing an actual, like, it's a volume kind of thing that it's looking at? So I was just kind of curious a bit more about if you could explain that one a little bit more.
So there is a fire alarm actually in my building. Can you hear it?
Oh no, do you need to run?
I think and maybe I'll join from downstairs. If Nathaniel wants to take that question, Nathaniel, I will just join in like 5 minutes because of the alarm.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Be
Wow,
safe.
you never know, right?
Be safe, Jumi. This is
Yeah,
important
so
work.
just to answer your question, so it's the normalized difference vegetation index. So it's kind of a integrated canopy response. So it's kind of the greenness measure that you mentioned, yeah. There are a number of other types of indices that the Sentinel-2 satellite has. There was the sort of normalized water index, which gives an indication of soil moisture. And there are, LAI, leaf area index, and a few others. So yeah, so there, at this point, one could look at sort of drone or ground-based combination alongside the satellite indices to get more information on canopy health, that kind of thing. But in terms of just the satellite data, it's kind of an integrated measure, if that explains. Yeah.
Thanks.
And I think, Lindsay, too, it would include things like your cover crop, like the granularity is not to the level that you would be
That was
looking
my
just at the
follow-up
grapevine.
question. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So when I think about the use case, like obviously it's a fairly large resolution, but I think what Jamie was saying, when you look at it maybe from a year over year perspective, as opposed to in-season tracking, it might be more helpful because you might be able to say, especially with like the moisture index, you might be able to say, oh, that's interesting. Like, from, looking at the big picture, I haven't irrigated yet this season. Let's say it's in May or early June or whatever it is. Like the overall moisture of the vineyard is dramatically lower from a satellite perspective, or the vegetation compared to last year, the canopy is not nearly where it was at this point last year. So I think at this point, that's kind of where we're at. And Jimmy may beg to differ, Nathaniel. Maybe you think that there's more that we can glean from it. But I think the biggest thing from that app, though, is that we've got this repository that's all in one place that you can get all of this data immediately rather than searching for it. I think a lot of growers probably aren't even familiar with the DayMet system. And you saw how strong the correlation is between the DayMet data and the BC DAS actual weather station data, like it's over zero point 0.9. So if you don't have a weather station on your property, you can now use that Vineyard Atlas and just go in there and actually look at the output of minimum and maximum temperatures over years and years and see, okay, where were there like some potential issues, or like, is this an appropriate variety to be planting based on like what the temperatures have been the last few years? There's a lot of possibilities there.
Got another question then I can throw out if nobody else does yet, or if people are slow to kind of get comfortable asking the questions. Although I see
Nice.
Hans has one in the chat there too. Was curious, like, so this is focused on vineyards right now, but knowing that you're drawing from that crop profiles from Ag Canada, is there ever the idea that expand this? So, like some of that temperature, soils data being available for other sites, because you talked about like maybe making planting decisions of saying like, yeah, actually this could be a really good spot for a vineyard if people were looking to expand out, or yeah, maybe it'll show some of these existing vineyards aren't in great spots. But yeah, I was just curious for that, like showing it for other areas besides just current vineyards right now. Or how does this look if it's a vineyard one year, not another year with that yearly data?
That's my understanding is you can apply it to effectively any area. So if you're assessing a new site for its suitability for grapes that was unplanted, then you'd be able to look at that DayMet data still.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, obviously, there's other considerations involved in moving your vineyard, and I think what would be interesting is to have that discussion of what other kinds of data layers, either open data that's available that could be integrated, or data from other types of models that BCDAS is thinking about. It could be whether it's powdery mildew or other types of information that could be indexed for at the vineyard scale. Just to come to Hans's question about the real time, with the Sentinel-2 data, it's kind of daily, and there's a bit of a delay in terms of the updates. So it's not kind of real time in that sense, like during the day. But you're with that, and then you have forecasts from Environment Canada. There's data up to 16 days ahead that could be incorporated as well. So there is a look forward possibility that we can do, as well as some updating then a day late, essentially from satellite data. So every kind of information has its sort of time matching that has to be taken into consideration. But it's a very good question, Hans. Thanks.
But that would still be at the 10-meter resolution,
That's
or
right.
much closer?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
And of course, a lot of these satellites are getting, the resolution is going higher and higher, and the improvements are coming. And so I think down the road, we're looking at satellites that have really high resolution, even types of quantum processing on board and things that. So we're never sure what the future holds, but certainly as resolutions improve, we'd be ready to kind of work with that information. So.
Michael is asking about xylem and phloem hardiness layers. Is that a possibility?
I think I'd probably refer that to Galen or to Ben Min, our experts, physiological experts here.
Yes.
Go ahead, Benmin. Yeah.
Yeah, so we here at Summerlin, we didn't measure any phloem or xylem data, but in Washington State they do have this data and they have been doing this for years. So with their data, we might be able to also go through all these process and build a model, but that will be basically based on Washington State data. Yeah. And the other thing is the xylem's lethal temperature determination is kind of different from buds. Their kind of like peak is actually pretty flat because it's a pretty large volume, right? So they kind of died in different like the temperature spanned a lot. So yeah, so the prediction will be totally different from the buds. Yeah. I think that will be some like incoming challenge if we want to build this model. Yeah.
And it's really variety specific, right?
I have no idea. Could be likely it should be a varietal dependent.
I remember looking at the Washington State data on Mourvèdre, which is like one of the least cold hardy buds, but one of the most cold hardy xylem. So
could
yeah,
be, yeah.
I know.
I didn't dig into that, but yeah.
It made it tempting, but probably not wise. Okay, we've got some more questions, I'm sure. Lindsay, we've used drone NDVI data in the past to assess the canopy health, let's call it, where like almost row by row, like, and then I've made picking decisions where the bottom two panels end up being rosé because they're getting too much water from the drip lines, and but you can the NDVI map shows that really, really well. Like I don't know if this resolution would be that good. Eventually it would, but row by row you can make decisions, sort of thing, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm intrigued on this too, of like water efficiencies and looking at people's systems to make sure, like you just talked about, right? That whether that balance is happening or one area is getting too much, too little.
Yeah,
I guess in a way, the
Sorry.
satellite data can help with scouting, right? So it sort of guides you to a certain part of the vineyard that which you could put some sensors in, do some drone.
Yeah, then look at soil moistures and
Exactly,
get more, dig down a bit more. Jumi, welcome back. You're safe? All good?
Yeah, all good. It's I think there's a fire alarm, I think, in my building, so I just like stepped out. Yeah.
Do you think it's a false alarm? Let's hope.
Doesn't look like there's a lot of students in the building, so they sometimes, set off their units on fire.
We'll keep an eye on it for you. We'll let you know. So yeah, there were some interesting questions about other layers that we might add. And yep, that's what we were talking about while you were gone. So
I just wanted to add a couple of things if I can, Kathy, and
thanks,
Jimmy,
Galen.
thanks for throwing in some of the use cases there. I think it was interesting, talking about, okay, using the tool as a potential guide for the timing of pruning. But the other thing I would reiterate is that with any of these cold hardiness models, I think for me the best use of it is guiding your pruning decisions in terms of how many buds you're going to be leaving, or maybe where you're going to be focusing your bud dissection. We all know that bud dissection is like a very time intensive and laborious process, and it's not always that accurate itself. But if you can actually go through your vineyard on a cultivar and block specific basis and really determine, okay, were these vines exposed to the LT10 or the LT50, that's really going to help you to determine how many buds you're going to be leaving and how much crop you can expect. And I think that's the part of it that growers will get the most use out of moving forward. The other piece I would say is, Jimmy, you didn't talk about how accurate your model is, but for most varieties that you were modeling, I think you were within 1 degree of like your model prediction was within 1 degree Celsius of the actual result. So I think that should give growers a lot of confidence.
Yeah, that's right. So we looked at like the overall model performance as well as like variety specific performance. So I'm just trying to pull up my slides actually so I can show you what the performance looked like in real time. Oh, can I share my screen? Let me see. Okay, perfect. Here. So this is the model performance with the test data set. So looking at like using the station data and the DMAT data, we saw like an error rate of less than 10%, like around 7 to 8%, which gives us an error within 1 to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And then when we use this particular model to predict across the entire data set, we saw consistent performance of less than sort of 7 to 8%. And then when we looked at specifically like broke down the model performance by variety and the damage thresholds, again, like we see similar performance where the model performance is always like the error rate is always below 10%. So the error always stays between 1 to 1.5 degrees Celsius by variety as well. And then also, again, like the full data set and also by the years, as you can see here, like looking at the entire period. So the shaded area is the testing season that we had sort of kept aside for model independent testing. But again, like across the years, across the damage thresholds, the error sort of stays below 10%, below in that 1 to 1.5 degree Celsius range. So the model is able to sort of capture the historical cold hardiness patterns in the data. And this is the model performance by variety as well.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, Jimmy, because I mean, I have to commend the work that Ben Min and his team and AAFC has done, for a number of years in terms of actually producing our bud hardiness data. I know how much work goes into that. But of course, AAFC has limited capacity. And so, where the sampling locations, it's, a specific number of vineyards. And so being able to either utilize the expanded DAS network, like we've got 40 stations in the Okanagan Similkameen, and that gives a lot better location specificity to your models. And then I think the other thing we're exploring, Jimmy, is using the virtual weather station option on the DAS network, where a grower can go in and actually select their own vineyard and create what we call a virtual weather station, which relies on that daymet data. And that gives them like the ultimate location specificity, and you run the model basically off of your own vineyard. Am I correct in saying that that's going to be feasible, Jimmy?
That's correct. And that's what exactly the DayMed sort of performance is showing here, is that it's equivalent to like the station data as well. So even at a virtual station network, I think the model should be able to simulate near approximate or near equal performance as the model would have when it had seen sort of station data. So this is what we were trying to do with the virtual weather piece as well.
So Jumi, I was going to ask you a couple questions.
Yeah.
I think it would be useful to explain to people, maybe just very briefly, what are the benefits here of the AI, the machine learning model, as opposed to traditional approaches? And then the second thing, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I thought it'd be really interesting, because while you were away, we were talking about the resolution of Sentinel data for forecasting, just to show spatially what an image looks like from Sentinel-2 for NTB-IR.
I can pull it up. I think I might have something
Okay,
ready.
great. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no worries. Just give me 1 second. I'm just pulling it up. Screen. If you can see my screen, probably it's running. Vineyard box. So this is Sentinel NDVI at 10 meters. So just like, because it's very high resolution, it takes like a couple of seconds to render. So I can build this feature into the app as well. It's just like, it'll just take a couple of times to render, so a couple of seconds. So maybe I'll just go down to Summerhill again, because Nathaniel and I, we've worked on this block quite a lot. So I know the location exactly and I can dive in, but so it's just like pull up. So this is what image would look like at 10 meters rendering. So this image, I think this image is at the peak of the season. So we see like so the darker areas are basically like high vigor versus like the yellowish areas which has sort of low vigor areas. So one could sort of make out the blocks. So I don't know. So this again vineyard block data set is a publicly available data set. It's not perfect, as you can see. This is again an AFC produced data set. All the fields in Canada have been mapped essentially, but again, it's not perfect. As you can see, the blocks are not great, but you can still make out that within the blocks, there is a bit of spatial variation, and that can be picked up by that 10 meters. So for example, in this particular block, there is a bit of sort of spatial variation.
And some weeks will have more quite substantial variation, right? Yeah.
Exactly. As we go, like in the beginning and the end of the season, we'll see like less like canopy vigor. So it'll be very light green versus like when we move into the mid-season when the colors would be at its darkest, like high vigor. So it sort of allows that spatial identification of that spatial variation using that 10-meter data set.
So with a little bit higher resolution, would you be able to make some connections to, for example, water status of vines, maybe not just the individual, but maybe, half a dozen vines in a.
Yeah, absolutely. Like so this is 10 meters. So if we are able to go down to even say 1 meter or a couple of centimeters, I think like 2 to 3 meters is also great. So then we'll be able to sort of pick up those inter-row differences. Right now, like as you see, like Sentinel is not picking up that inter-row difference between those rows, but with that high resolution, we'll be able to pick up that inter-row difference. And then, as you mentioned, like we'll be able to sort of pick up that water quality like signal as well. So there is an index and it's on the app as well. It's called Normalized Difference Water Index. So it basically tells you like how much stressed a moisture deficit or moisture sort of abundant a particular location is, and using that particular index you could make out like which areas are sort of water stressed versus which areas are water abundant. But right now with 10 meters it's hard to pick up the difference, but with a 1 meter 2 meter resolution image, I think that difference would become very prominent in this kind of mapping.
And Jumi, there's always this planet data, right? There's all other types of commercial data that, yeah, if one
That's
got serious with it.
Exactly, that's
Yeah.
correct. And we've been exploring planet data, as Nathaniel mentioned. It's like 2 to 3 meters. And Planet right now, it's like it's a paid data product, but they do have a research option where one can sign up and access like a limited amount of data. But I think given the Okanagan's entire region, I think the entire Okanagan can be sort of accessed in their free tier. So if we are able to access that, we should be able to see like more sort of spatial differences using that Planet 2 to 3 meters within the season. And planet data is also very available, like frequencies, I think, couple of days. So we should get like an image every 2 to 3 days that helps us to sort of pick out the difference.
Ben Min?
No, I was going to ask how often they update this data, and Jumi just answered.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sentinel is every 2 to 3 days. So in the app, so once you select 2026, it'll give you data up until the latest date. So manually, one doesn't need to sort of filter the date. It automatically updates in the app. And as Sentinel image becomes available, the value in the chart will become available as well.
Jumi, I was sort of explaining how satellite data is kind of delayed, so it's always behind, whereas Environment Canada data, forecast data from their Danview model forecast could go up to 16 days ahead that could be incorporated potentially into forecasts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So back to one quick question, just for people, how are these AI models? Because Ben Min, you were mentioning how a lot of the other viticulture centers are working with AI models now for a lot of cold hardiness and other types of forecasts. So I guess question to both of you, where do you see the role of these kind of machine learning models going in the future?
To me, from what I know, machine learning is cool, but the problem for me is they don't provide a mechanism behind the value. So it's basically a black box. We don't know how the machine is learning. Yeah, so for me, that will be well, I'm a physiologist and kind of more into how the mechanism works, right? So that's a part. But usually, say, I know Cornell, they also have this similar model, and looks like works pretty well, very accurate. Yeah. So this is, I think, the advantage of these AI or machine learning model is they works really well somehow. Yeah. Even though, say, I actually only provide these data kind of like every 2 weeks, right, for one variety for one block. But in the end, the results it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great point
Pretty
because
cool.
there's the process models and empirical models have a lot of information, and there are some AI techniques called Bayesian networks which try to incorporate more of the actual process. So it's definitely an area, Ben Min, you and I should talk more about. But I think
Yeah.
you're right.
Kind of
Yeah,
integrate these things.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Jumi, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, no, I echo what Benjamin said that, it's sort of a black box model right now. We don't know what the model is performing like behind the scene, but also there's like variable importance measures and sort of like, techniques to sort of pick out the signals, like which sort of variable is driving model performance now. So there are sort of like a lot of innovations now that sort of we can apply to these black box models to understand which are the most important variables that is driving model performance. And the key strength is that, as Benjamin mentioned, that these models are able to pick those hidden signals in the data that a traditional, like a process-based model or a statistical regression model is unable to do.
So that's something actually you might want to investigate with the tools, just adding the importance levels with the different inputs. That might be informative. Yeah.
Right.
so
Just out of curiosity, oh, go ahead.
sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask what your parameter inputs, like weather parameter inputs, were for these cold hardiness models that you kind of landed on.
Sure. So right now so sorry, I saw Gillen's comment made me smile. So right now we're using a couple of like a very basic weather inputs, like driven by the reference model, which is the grape hardened model. So the direct weather parameters, minimum temperature, maximum temperature, humidity, vapor pressure. And then for the random forest machine learning model, which is a baseline, because the model cannot see like the engineered features or the hidden sort of parameter state as a multitask deep learning model is able to. For that random forest model, we are feeding in some engineered features such as like rolling degree days, lag days, and so on. But right now, it's just like basic temperature, precipitation, vapor pressure inputs to the model.
Very neat. Looks really good.
That was my question about growing degree days. That
Right.
it would be able to track and give the historical.
Exactly. So this MTL model is able to sort of calculate its own GDT behind the scenes, but the
Yeah.
random forest model, we sort of input that explicitly into the model. So that's why the model is able to sort of track that seasonal trajectory from winter to spring by learning all of these hidden signals.
Ben Min.
Yeah, so a question about the performance of the cohardiness model. Does the model works well for spring, kind of early spring and the late fall prediction? I know I didn't really supply too many data points over over those time frame. So the second question is if I could support more over this time frame, like say early October or even earlier, would that help you to build a better model?
I think it's
Yes.
a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Benjamin. I think that's the challenging part in the early season and the late season is that because the density of observed data is so low at that particular point in time that the model is unable to capture the exact specifics at the beginning and the end. But at the bottom, like at the mid season, I think the data is like most available. That's why the model is sort of picking up that U-shaped curve very well at the bottom.
Okay.
But a data would definitely help. Yeah.
I think the other
Sounds
point
like
to
Steve got more work.
Yeah, more work to do. The other point just to raise here is, this model is able to do it for all cultivars and all seasons and all regions. I mean, think of that, how a model can process all that data and find these kind of nonlinear patterns. Obviously, it's trained on data, but it's going much further into beyond sort of our own human intelligence to find these patterns in the data, to be able to do that, to profile it out for. So I think it's exciting that way, but we always have to then look at validation, and I think that's one area Jumi, Ben-Min, and you and I can talk about how to validate these kind of models with other types of benchmark models and other types of data sets, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can. Sorry,
Please.
Benjamin, I just wanted to quickly show you that, as you mentioned, the density of the data points. So as you see, like in the early season, we just have like in November 14, it's one data point. So the dots are basically the observed data points. The line is the predicted line. But here in the bottom, when we have like a couple of like observed data, like back to back within a 4 to 5 day period. So that model sort of learns that pattern very well. Maybe let me look at another. So again, like same thing. So early in the season and late season. I think that we had better examples. So again, like here, so and so, like as we can increase those dots on the plot, I think the model curve would become smoother and smoother. Yeah.
That's good. So if I have a limit, kind of like a time or resources, if I can only do this at our center, would that even just basically I can provide early season measurement, but the samples are say Malore from Summerlin only, would that help as well? Okay, just even not just from one side, that might be helpful.
I think so, because we can then look at the observed value of that particular location with another location. And if there is a good correlation, then we can extrapolate from that location. Nathaniel, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm
Yeah,
thinking
exactly.
of
Yeah.
extrapolation. Yeah.
Right, the extrapolation error is pretty reasonable on this case, so I think we can do that, as well as benchmark Ben into some physiological models as well.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. That will guide me how to do the cohardiness. Nice. So this is another benefit of modeling, I think.
Okay, we're making more work for people. That's awesome. Any more questions, comments? I think it's going to be really interesting to sort of overlay the soils data, right? The soils data with the moisture data, with the hardiness data. You know here on the Near bench, we see a big difference above the road versus below the road, because the soil is very different. The below the road soils are much heavier, a lot more silt, and their water holding capacity is huge. And in 2019, you could really see the results in the vineyard. We had a lot of bud damage below the road and not above the road. And yeah, I think just packing all that data together is going to be really super interesting.
So I can quickly show you like what the data set on Google Earth Engine looks like, Kathy. Like, so this is like a open land map. I'm forgetting the resolution, but they do, I think this is clay data. And if I zoom in all the way to maybe BCWGC, Sophia clay content. So this is not very like fine resolution. It would be a bit of coarser resolution. And then just like tells you in terms of like what the percentages. So if I may click somewhere, so in terms of different depths at 10 centimeter, 30 centimeter, it'll tell me like the clay content in terms of percentage.
Oh, wow.
And this is like global coverage. So let me just zoom out all the way. So this is one data set that's sort of publicly available. But again, like it's very coarse. It's not very fine resolution.
Yeah.
So, but it does have consistent coverage. So it could act as like a very rough proxy.
Right.
Yeah.
And
but I mean, we do have provincial soil
provincial
mapping data, right? Yeah.
So we should integrate that. And
okay.
As well, the Atlas, I was just going to say there's all kinds of open data layers that could be integrated. And I wonder if someone wants to add a map in, a layer to something they're looking at, maybe that would be a good option to add.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you need to have like medals and awards that wines have won that were grown in those spots.
Okay, we could do that.
And and media descriptions,
Stop sharing that.
Okay. Anything else? We've got 8 minutes. Anything else anybody wants to talk about? I came up with a really good idea to combat the anti-alcohol movement. So one of you researchers might be interested in looking into this. I'd be willing to help fund a study that shows that regular wine consumption preserves tattoos. What do you think? Who's in?
I'm intrigued how you came to this conclusion.
I was just looking at tattoos one day. I thought, how do we get people to drink wine? Yeah.
Or get more tattoos.
As if for an excuse to drink more wine, right?
Well, my aunt did ask me, because I sent her a link the other day, that they've come up with a study now how coffee actually helps with the your gut biome. And so she's like, okay, now can you find me one for wine that I can take to my doctor?
I'm sure it does. I'm sorry, but I'm sure it does. Yeah. Okay. Anybody want to talk about tattoos? Jumi, I will have you back. That was an excellent presentation, and as you add layers, I think it would be good for you to teach us how to use them more than anything. Thanks so much for being here.
This is fascinating. I mean, there are a lot of future possibilities with this,
right?
and that the sky is the limit, basically.
Yeah, it's made me not as grumpy about AI too. So, yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to, I guess folks could go to the beach if you want. You've got 6 minutes added to your day.
No, we're all gonna go play with the app now.
Yeah,
With the Atlas.
that's true. That's true. I'm like, okay, but what about this row? How cold did it get in this row? Yeah, yeah. I've actually already done that. Crazy. It's crazy. Thanks so much, everybody. The next third Thursday is going to be August 20th, and the subject is to be announced. You've probably all seen the promos for the Triggs lecture. It's in your latest Wine Grape Council newsletter, so give that some consideration. Maybe we'll see you there. And Naramata's having a tailgate party September 13th. What else? Buy Hillside Wine. Sorry, I've never done that before. So we'll say goodbye. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
See
you,
you next
Kathy.
time.
Thank you all.
Bye.